Oh, so none of that might have gone.
Oh my god.
That's okay. That's okay.
We don't know if any of that just happened, but we might have just had a little bit of a mix-up. But first off, hi, I'm Dominic, and welcome to Thrills and Chills, where we keep you in the loop about everything roller coasters and amusement parks. I just want to take this first episode to not only introduce myself, what rides I like, my backstory, like how I ended up liking roller coasters so much, and the plan for future shows, and then a little piece on Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa, which recently closed on Sunday of last week, so the 8th, and then just a bit of news that kind of has been going around for amusement parks. So first off, hi, I'm Dominic. I'm a freshman here at Quinnipiac. I'm studying mechanical engineering. As you could have guessed, is because I want to design roller coasters. Yay! Let me grab my little list that I have of my favorite roller coasters of all time. So I'm just gonna go down my top 25 roller coasters from 25 down. So number 25 is Twister at Knoebels. Number 24 is Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain. No, I might just cut this down to top 10.
That's okay.
Okay. Also, I have someone definitely more knowledgeable than me sitting in with me, so yay. I'm just gonna cut this down to top 20 roller coasters that are my favorite.
You don't have to be as loud then.
Oh.
If it's right in front of you.
Yeah, okay.
If it wants to stay in front of you.
We're trying to figure stuff out.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just grabbing my charger.
No worries. So number 20 is Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Number 19 is Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Number 18 is The Riddler's Revenge at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Number 17 is Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure. Number 16 is Steel Force at Dorney Park. Number 15 is Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. Number 14 is Thunderhead at Dollywood. Number 13 is Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. Number 12 is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa. Number 11 is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Number 10 is Railblazer at California's Great America. Number 9 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. Number 8 is Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. Number 7 is the Cyclone at Luna Park in Coney Island. Number 6 is Gold Striker at California's Great America. Number 5 is Phoenix at Knoebels. Number 4 is Boulder Dash at Lake Compounce. Number 3 is X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Number 2 is Skyrush at Hershey Park. And number 1 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. Those are my favorite coasters. My favorite log flume, I guess, is the Timber Mountain log ride at Knott's Berry Farm. I really love that ride. It's just super charming. And my favorite park also is Knott's Berry Farm. So, yay, I really love Knott's Berry Farm. It's such a great place. I think I should just move on to how I got into coasters. So I just want. Oops, sorry. Okay. Was it? So I initially hated roller coasters. Like completely afraid. Didn't want to ride them. Didn't want to look at them. Didn't want to go to an amusement park. And then just what was it? When I went to, I think it was 2021, I went to Six Flags Great Adventure, and I remember this day, I rode absolutely nothing until, because it was a school trip. It was, end of the year trip, let's go with people who are my friends at that point. But, we ended up, they were like, well, you should ride Batman, because it's the end of the day, so Batman being, just the B&M inverted coaster, which is, it's kind of a bit extreme going from the kiddie rides all the way up to Batman, because if you've ridden any version of Batman the ride besides the one in Mexico City, because that one's a completely different ride, you know they're pretty intense. So I remember I was completely terrified. I was sitting in the front row, I was sobbing up the lift hill, and then it just happened, and I was like, wow, we should do that again. And then eventually this led to I'm trying to think. I didn't really plan about. I didn't really plan this whole part. I just kind of made it on the fly. But was it? It was April of 2022, and me and my family ended up going to Virginia for spring break. So I was like, hey, where are some good rides in Virginia? Maybe I could ride some new stuff. So turns out we were already planning to go Busch Gardens Williamsburg. However, what we weren't planning to go to was King's Dominion. So I ended up suggesting that we go there, and well, the rest kind of became history, and I rode the greatest roller coaster ever made there. So there's that. Was it? That's pretty much it. And since then, now I've been on 211 roller coasters. It kind of all happened like that. That's kind of the best way to put it. Kind of all just snowballed into, hey, I'm just riding more and more. Let me add them to this imaginary number in my head. But, that's pretty much the entire story of me getting into roller coasters. I have to think. What else is there anything else? Nothing else really to mention on that front. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I wanna also talk about why I started the show, because as you can kind of tell, I really, really like roller coasters. Gee, who could have guessed? But I really like just talking about roller coasters. I used to do YouTube, but over time, like, YouTube just became so, like, unsatisfactory to me. Like, okay, because I used to vlog on YouTube, and I just could not enjoy, like, going to a park then, because it was like, okay, you gotta film your reaction to stuff, and it just wasn't fun. So, but I was like, well, I still want to make some sort of content, and then someone suggested, hey, you should do a podcast. Well, I had no knowledge of doing a podcast, but now here at school, we kind of have our own radio station, so I kind of applied for a show, and yeah, this kind of happened. Was it? So yeah, I just really like talking about roller coasters. I do want to mention my co-host Jose. He is not here today. He is I have to check it. He said he was filming something for his film class. So Jose, if you're listening to this, hi, and I'll see you next week. But yeah. So next I want to talk about Scorpion at Busch Gardens Tampa, which recently closed. Oh, actually, before that, I want to talk about what the plan for the episodes of this will be, because was it kind of sounds like I'm just rambling, which at this point I kind of am. But was it every episode I figure I'll focus on either a story about a coaster, or just like a coaster in general and why I like it so much, or just kind of just talk about anything involving roller coasters. But yeah, that's pretty much the plan for the show. We here at Thrills and Chills just want to keep you in the loop about stuff. So yeah. Anyways, Scorpion was it was at Busch Gardens Tampa. It was a was it Schwarzkopf looping coaster, and was it kind of just rambling at this point. But Scorpion it closed last Sunday the 8th. So, but it also opened in 1980, so it was pretty old at this point. But I just want to talk about it because while I'm from Long Island, so I didn't grow up like in Tampa, so it wasn't like, oh, it's my first looping roller coaster or something that's like super monumental. No, it was just like a really fun ride. And it's kind of sad to me that they took it out, but also at the same time, I get the ride was nearly 45 years old at this point. But yeah, let me check my notes again. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of set the stage. And then I don't know the exact time frame. I'm just gonna try and remember this off the top of my head. I think it was 1954. Probably should have planned this out better. But in 1954, Anheuser-Busch, the beer company, kind of they made a brewery in Tampa, and they built around that Busch Gardens Tampa. But initially, Busch Gardens Tampa wasn't an amusement park. It was just a place to kind of chill out. It was a beer garden. Just went there to see some animals, chill out, get some drinks, tour the plant where they actually made the beer for all the Busch brands, so like Budweiser and stuff. But what was it? I'm gonna say, okay, so I think it was either 1976 or 1977. By this point, in 1971, Disney World had opened in Orlando, and Tampa's like an hour and a half away, 2 hours, somewhere around there. But by this point, Disney World has been open for a few years at this point, so Busch Gardens really had to start like competing with them. So at this point, in 1970, oh my god, I really should have put this in my notes. 1975, Knott's Berry Farm opened the first Aero corkscrew model, which was the first modern inverting roller coaster. So before that, we had like Flip Flap Railway at on Coney Island, where it was like an extremely circular loop. So it was just like insane G-force. So like, I think it was like pulling 12 G-force and making people just straight up pass out. But looping coasters weren't really successful at this point, so Aero kind of came up with, hey, what if we do this inversion where you kind of spin around in the shape of a corkscrew? And they named it the corkscrew. So at this point, Knott's Berry Farm installed corkscrew, which was the first modern inverting roller coaster. And then I think it was 1976 or 77, Busch Gardens Tampa bought their own called Python. And Python was their first roller coaster. I don't know exactly where it was in the park. If I remember correctly, I heard a while ago that it was by where we'll get into that eventually, but it was close to where Iron Gwazi is today, for context, if you know the park layout. I think it was close to there. I'm not too sure. So what it pretty much was, it was like their draw to like, hey, we could steal a bit of Disney World's thunder here. So it actually ended up working out pretty good for them. So they started getting a lot more crowds and stuff. And at this point, 1978, the other Busch Gardens park, Busch Gardens Williamsburg, installed the Loch Ness Monster, which is still a very iconic ride to this day, with those famous interlocking loops above the river in the park. It's super cool. It's a super cool ride. Not personally my favorite, but it's still a super fun ride. So by this point, Busch Gardens Tampa was looking to expand. So in 1980, they opened the Timbuktu section of the park. But with this, they also bought a new roller coaster, and that being Scorpion, which was Schwarzkopf Silver Arrow. So context for everyone. By the way, I probably should have included this. It's a learning game for now, with this whole first episode thing. So I'm just trying my best for my first episode. But so Schwarzkopf, if you know, Super Duper Looper at Hershey Park, and the New American Revolution at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and I have to think of more of them. Jetstar 2 at Lagoon, Colossus the Fire Dragon at Lagoon, Whizzer at Six Flags Great America. I have to think, where are some more? Oh, Montezuma's Revenge at Knott's Berry Farm. For anyone listening in the surrounding area, Rocky Point in was it? It was in Rhode Island. I don't know the exact town off the top of my head, but Rocky Point Park had a Schwarzkopf Wildcat called Cyclone, I believe, that's still operating in somewhere in Canada, I'm pretty sure. Let me think. Oh, Riddler Mindbender at Six Flags Over Georgia. Shockwave at Six Flags Over Texas. Those are all like classic Schwarzkopf loopers. So Schwarzkopf was known for like making very compact looping coasters that were pretty intense. They could be transported. So like Silver Bullet at Frontier City in Oklahoma is a looping star model that used to travel around. But Schwarzkopf coasters are still known for being incredibly smooth in comparison to aero coasters. We'll come back to that later, which have not aged the best. But so Schwarzkopf at this point was making like really solid rides, and so Silver Arrow was a smaller version of their looping star, not the exact same model. It was a lot more compact. So Scorpion had only one loop and then a few helixes, turns and helixes, but it was an insanely compact ride. It took up virtually no space. Just like, it was a very small chunk of land that it sat on. But at this point in 1980, Busch Gardens was like, hey, can we get a Silver Arrow from Schwarzkopf? And they were like, so they bought it from Schwarzkopf and then they installed it. That became Scorpion. So at this point, I think it was 1986. By 1986, bad news, guys. Schwarzkopf went defunct. Yeah, because Anton Schwarzkopf, who founded the company, while he could build a good ride, he was not a very good businessman. So his company kind of ended up falling apart. So while he didn't make, the rides that he made were all very, very solid rides for the time. And even then, today, they still hold up extremely well, even if they're not the most thrilling. But they're still decently smooth, except for like a bit of like shuffling on the track. So, okay. For anyone who's not like super into roller coasters, like the shuffling is a rattle, I'd classify it as. So it's like rattling around on the track. But even up to when I rode Scorpion last year in November, it only shuffled like a bit on the track. It was still remarkably smooth. Like, wow, this thing is pretty much 45 years old at this point, and it's still that smooth. Like, okay, it's just kind of remarkable how well Schwarzkopf coasters have held up in this in the time since they've been built, because when Schwarzkopf started, I'm pretty sure they opened their first coaster in 1964 in I think it was in Sweden somewhere. I'm not too sure about that one, from what I remember. But even today, like, how well these rides have held up is just kind of a marvel. But so Scorpion, it pretty much think of like Super Duper Looper and Revolution at Magic Mountain. Think about those two rides where it's just kind of like everything is about that one singular loop, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be all about like the loop. It's like an introduction to going upside down, and it kind of became a legend to a lot of Tampa locals, from what I've been informed from people that lived in Tampa at multiple points. Like, oh yeah, Scorpion's kind of just become a legend like in Tampa because it's like everyone's ridden it at least once. Like, oh, it's kind of like our introduction to like a big roller coaster. So so let me think, where can I go with this? So let me 1980. So 1980, Scorpion and the Timbuktu area open. 1993, Kumba opens in I think the Serengeti. No, it's not the Serengeti Plains area. I don't remember the exact area of the park that's in like the named area, but Kumba opens, which for those not informed, Kumba is absolutely massive. Like, for the time period, it was unbelievable. Like, this thing was huge for the time period. So, like, glass smooth, 7 inversions, so just complete step up from Scorpion, which was just the one singular loop. Kumba is out here with a loop, a dive loop, a 0G roll, a cobra roll, and then interlocking corkscrews. That's like an entire, like, it's so much bigger than Scorpion is what I'm trying to say. I can't really, like, put it exactly what I'm trying to say. But Kumba is such a dynamic step up from Scorpion. So it's just kind of like Scorpion was a stepping stone between, like, the park's kiddie coaster. They never had a kiddie coaster until, like, 2010, which was Super Grover or Air Grover, I'm pretty sure, because they have the Sesame Street license. I don't know why I'm talking about this. But it was kind of like the step up between the family coasters in the park, so like Cobra's Curse and all that. So it was kind of like the stepping stone of, like, from Scorpion you would go Cheetah Hunt, which is, we'll get to Cheetah Hunt, but it opened in 2011. It's an Intamin Blitz coaster with, like, 3 launches, and then also kind of in the same vein, it's a family looping coaster, so it only has 1 inversion, which is just a Heartline roll, but it's a lot more wild than Scorpion because of the launches. So it's kind of like Scorpion was that perfect middle ground for people, like, too afraid to go on the bigger rides, or, like, kind of like that transition point where it's like, hey, let's start going on the bigger rides. So Scorpion was kind of like that stepping stone. And then Kumba opening in 1993 was just so massive. It just completely stole all the thunder from Scorpion at this point. Like, because Scorpion and Python at this point both still existed. But, but just, because at this point, because 1993, so at this point, Python's become known as, like, oh, it's a pretty rough ride, because back to that, the Aero coasters aged not very good, so most of them have become quite shaky and jerky because all of the rides were just designed and built by hand, welded by hand. All the track was bent and shaped by hand by the actual track fabricators from Aero, so there was just no precision in their designs at this point, besides, like, hey, we've designed this model. So Aero kind of became known as just, best way to put it, their chief engineer, Ron Toomer, was very stubborn that he didn't want to switch to computer engineering for their coasters and preferred to, like, actually draft plans for coasters by hand still. So by this point, Python had gained a reputation for being kind of rough. So in comes Kumba, which is just this glass smooth giant looping coaster, and it just completely steals everything in that park's thunder. So after that, in 1996, Montu opened, which is, plain and simply, it's the greatest inverted roller coaster I've ever ridden. It is absolutely insane. Another 7 inversion coaster, a B&M inverted coaster, so something like Batman the Ride. But think of much bigger, much more intense, and it kind of wants to rip you in half the entire ride. But this also anchored a new section of the park in the front part of the park called the Egypt section, so themed to Egypt. So Montu's actually themed to I think it's themed to Ra, who's the Egyptian sun god. I'm pretty sure. I'm not too sure about that one. But was it? So at this point, you have two ginormous multi-looping coasters that are glass smooth, and then was it? By this point, like Scorpion and Python were a bit of old news, but they were still kind of like the old reliable in the situation. Like, hey, we should go ride this because it's like the stepping stone coaster to like actually riding Kumba, which I can't imagine someone just going from something like Scorpion where it's kind of like, oh, it's just the one loop, to absolutely getting just decimated on Kumba. Like, oh my god, what is happening right now? Because Kumba, while most find it very intense, I want to just preface this by saying, so for the uninformed, when you gray out on a roller coaster, it's when you lose your vision like slightly, so your eyes go a little fuzzy around the edges, and then when you black out, it's when your vision just completely closes up. This is because of like just the positive G's, like how sustained they are, and you'll start to just like the blood will start to drain from your head. So was it Kumba to most people is incredibly intense. I found it somewhat intense because also at the same time, I did not, for again, people that are informed, Intimidator 305 has pretty much gained, my favorite coaster has gained a legacy as being the most intense roller coaster on the planet, because the first element on it compared to other gig coasters where you go into like a giant hill first, or like a big turn up in the air, you're going 90 miles an hour through a small turn on the ground, and you're just completely hauling through it. So most people will lose their vision, and it got so bad in the opening year that people were going to first aid, and they were like, oh, maybe this is a little too intense. So they had to come back. The company that built it, Intamin, came back and completely rebuilt the first turn so it would let up on the forces earlier in the ride. So, but it's still incredibly intense. I did not lose my vision on that. I want to just say this. So I didn't really find Kumba that intense, besides like, wow, it's just throwing a lot at you. Like, it's a good ride, don't get me wrong. I really do enjoy it. But I know others find it more intense, but also at the same time, I'm not a person that loses vision on roller coasters very easily, so I'll have to be like super dehydrated. I think the last time I did it was Iron Menace at Dorney Park opening day, where no food stalls were open and there was nowhere to get my drink cup for the year or like fill up my water bottle. So I just hadn't been drinking a lot. I was just kind of trying to ration how much water I had. And even then, I was only like slightly graying out by this point in the day. So, was it? I know most people just end up finding Kumba more intense than me, but I prefer Montu personally in the same park. Let me think. What else? Montu opens in 1996. 1998, Gwazi opens, which is a GCI dueling wooden roller coaster. It was, let me think. I think it was the last GCI wooden coaster used PTC trains. So PTC is a completely different company. Okay, so a bunch of wooden roller coaster companies kind of end up connecting together. It's a kind of a weird, like a sophisticated dance is the best way that I could put it. But they end up all connecting back. So PTC made classic wooden roller coasters, so like Racer at Kings Island, Phoenix at Knoebels, Comet at Hershey Park, Comet at Comet at Six Flags Great Escape. I have to think of some more. For anyone listening in the local area, Wildcat at Lake Compounds. They also built that. I think that was in 1927 that opened, but they were pretty much the biggest company for old wooden roller coasters at this point. And then 1976, their last coaster opened. I think it was Screaming Eagle at Six Flags St. Louis. But was it? At this point, there's a park in Ohio called Kings Island, and this guy Charlie Dinn works there. And so in 1979, the entire park maintenance staff comes together and builds probably the biggest example of a backyard roller coaster, which is the Beast. It's probably the best way to put that ride because the ride was built completely by this park staff. So it's just kind of just a big backyard roller coaster. So it's built in just Kings Island's woods. The Beast just goes off into the woods. I have not ridden the Beast, I will say, but just goes off into the woods. So Charlie Dinn was the main designer of it. I could be wrong about that, but he had a hand in building that. But eventually, Dinn ended up leaving Kings Island and founded his own company called the Dinn Corporation. Now, the Dinn Corporation ends up building like Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas, Mean Streak at Cedar Point, and let me think of another good example. Wolverine Wildcat at Michigan's Adventure. So, yeah, by 1992, the Dinn Corporation ends up. Hercules. They also built Hercules at Dorney Park, which was their first coaster, I'm pretty sure, besides the Beast, because the Beast wasn't built by the actual Dinn Corporation. It was built by Charlie Dinn and the park staff, whereas like Hercules was built by the Dinn Corporation. Because there's a bit of a difference there, just kind of, yeah. So by, I think, 1992, the Dinn Corporation had folded and gone defunct. So I believe Charles Dinn's daughter, Denise Dinn Lerick, ends up founding Custom Coasters International, where they go on to build some of the best wooden roller coasters on the planet, which Boulder Dash is a CCI wooden roller coaster, which is absolutely incredible. One of the greatest rides ever made. It's just incredible. They also built Legend at Holiday World, the Raven at Holiday World. Let me think, some other ones. The Great White at Maury's Piers, Kingdom Coaster at Dutch Wonderland, the Boss at Six Flags St. Louis. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But there was a designer there named Mike Boodley, and Mike Boodley ends up designing Outlaw at Adventureland in Altoona, Iowa. And I forgot the exact reason. He ends up leaving CCI and goes on to form GCI, which is Great Coasters International, which is they built like Lightning Racer at Hershey Park, the old Wildcat, so the one that opened in 1996 and closed in 2022, that Wildcat at Hershey Park. I have to think of some other GCI coasters. Gold Striker at California's Great America, which is my favorite from them, and one of the greatest rides, just period. Thunderhead at Dollywood, White Lightning at Fun Spot Orlando. Let me think of some more. And Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, which we should get back to it. But eventually, CCI ends up going bankrupt as well, and some engineers from there jump ship to the Gravity Group, which is a new company. They end up building a little ride that a lot of people end up talking about, the Voyage at Holiday World, which I have not ridden, but I've heard things about it. I'm going to withhold my judgment on that ride until I ride it, but it looks very good. And then some other people end up jumping ship to SNS Worldwide at this point because they founded a wooden coaster division. They ended up only building like 4 wooden roller coasters, and then they kind of stopped. But Gwazi opened in 1998, so PTC still builds trains for wooden roller coasters, even to this day, even if they just do not build coasters anymore, they still build the actual trains for the coasters. But Gwazi opened in 1998, so it was a GCI coaster with PTC trains. And I believe it was the last GCI to run the PTC trains, because the PTC trains are not very good for train articulation. So trains can only like turn in like such like they only have a set turning radius is probably the best way that I could put it. They have a set turning radius, and certain trains can't turn as tightly as other ones. But GCI is famous for building like really twisted, like really turn-based wooden roller coasters, so rides that have a lot of turns and you get popped out of your seat like on the turns with airtime. So the PTC trains end up starting to rip apart Gwazi at this point, so they switched them to GCI's trains, which are Millennium Flyers. Gwazi ends up closing in 2015, I'm pretty sure. I should move on at this point. But let me think. What was the next ride they opened? Oh, I should have had this in a script. That's fine. Don't worry. Was it? I should have had a script for this. I kind of just have talking points for what I'm doing. But was it 2000? Let me check real quick. Again, I apologize for not having this written down. I tried preparing the best that I could for today, but I am still super nervous even now. But Busch Gardens. Was it? The next coaster that they opened was it? Sand Serpent, which was just a standard wild mouse relocated from Busch Gardens Williamsburg. But by this point, it's 2004. In 2006, Python ends up closing because decreased rider satisfaction. So, Python just ends up closing because it's just become notoriously known as a rough, uncomfortable ride. I also kind of skipped over this. The park opened SheiKra in 2005, which is a B&M dive coaster. It's fine. That's the best way I could put it without being flamed to death for my opinion on that one. Was it? So by this point, I'm just gonna fast forward to 2014. A few more coasters have come and gone. So by this point, let's see. So Air Grover opens, Cheetah Hunt opens, and what is it? What else opens? That ends up being it. Oops. Was it? So by this point, was it? It's 2014. So the Timbuktu area becomes the Pantopia section, and Pantopia just kind of becomes a family area in the park, besides the Sesame Street area, which that's kind of on its own. But by this point, Scorpion gets repaint, I'm pretty sure, around this time. And let me think. Scorpion by this point is 34 years old. So it was starting to get up there in age, but it was such a classic ride that everyone in the area loved. And then I'm just going to fast forward a bit more. 2019, Tigris Premier Skyrocket 2 opens. Was it? Cobra's Curse also opens in 2016. Was it? Gwazi ended up closing in 2015. Kind of sat there for a few years. They didn't really do anything with it for a few years until they announced Iron Gwazi, which is a RMC hybrid coaster. So RMC kind of just was it? They take an old wooden roller coaster and take the old track off, and they reuse the structure to make a better ride. So Twisted Timbers used to be Hurler at King's Dominion. Wicked Cyclone used to be the Riverside Cyclone at Six Flags New England. Twisted Colossus at Magic Mountain used to be just Colossus, and then there was Gwazi, which is now Iron Gwazi. So they kind of combined the two dueling tracks on Gwazi into just one big ride. And by this point, it's 2022 when Iron Gwazi opens. So, Scorpion at this point is now 42 years old. So, it's really starting to get up there in age. But it's also kind of weird to me that Scorpion ended up closing. Oh, never mind. Scorpion's parts were still being made by a company named Gerstlauer, which is based out of the old Schwarzkopf factory who built Scorpion. So it's just kind of a weird chain that kind of links back together. It all links back together. So it's kind of weird to me that Scorpion did end up closing this year, because parts are still being made for old Schwarzkopf coasters. I know it probably is a bit expensive to get them from Gerstlauer, since it's like for custom Schwarzkopfs. So there's that. By this point, also Iron Gwazi is open. Phoenix Rising has opened this year in it opened in July. Oh, I didn't even know that it opened in July this year. Phoenix Rising, which is their new B&M family inverter coaster on the spot of Sand Serpent, which closed in 2023. So kind of just randomly about, I think it was 3 weeks ago. And I think it was like at 10 in the morning, just Busch Gardens posted, hey, we're closing Scorpion on September 2nd. I think it was like less than 10 days notice. Period. So a lot of people in the entire community of just coaster enthusiasts was like, wow, that's not really a good move from the park. Just kind of announcing it really suddenly and not giving any warning, because last year, Fire in the Hole at Silver Dollar City, which was opened in 1972, it was also built in-house by the park, kind of like the Beast, but it was a steel indoor roller coaster, kind of more of a dark ride, so had more show scenes than than actually being a roller coaster. Last year they gave a full season's notice that it was closing, and then they rebuilt it, and a new version opened this year, which obviously they're probably not going to do that with Scorpion, but by this point, people have started to get very mad at Busch Gardens for just kind of giving zero notice of when the ride was closing. They kind of only gave about 10 days notice, so people were understandably a bit mad. So they ended up extending it to September 8th, which was a whole 6 days. And needless to say, yeah, it's closed now, because now it's Friday the 13th. And Scorpion closed on Sunday. I find it pretty bittersweet, because while it makes room for future expansion, Scorpion was just honestly a really solid roller coaster for the time period. And not only that, it held up to this day. It was a good ride. Nowhere near as good as Kumba or Montu or stuff like that in the same park. But it was still a decently good ride. It was pretty forceful too. The helix at the end was really, really wow, this is really fast. It's starting to actually make me feel it's wow, this is decently intense, is what I'm trying to say. Was it? And yeah, Scorpion's just kind of gone now. I'm a bit bittersweet about it. Moving on from that. Next part. This is actually probably the best part. I want to cover some news that went on. Yeah. Just some news that kind of has dropped within like the past week, I guess. So, Busch Gardens Williamsburg today also announced their new roller coaster, which is it's going to be a B&M Family Inverted coaster honoring their old Big Bad Wolf coaster that closed in 2009. But that was also like kind of a legend like Scorpion. Like, oh, everyone knew it as like a family ride that everyone could end up riding, that everyone can enjoy. And what was it? So they gave 3 choices to vote on the names. I just wanna kind of say that you could choose to vote on the name. So I'm gonna pull up the choices for them again, and let me find them. I had them saved somewhere. I have them saved somewhere. Okay. 3 choices are... Oh, wait, no, that's not them. Okay. The 3 choices are Wolfstrom, Wolf's Rain, or Geisterwolf. Now, I'm just someone with a microphone, but I really think that you should go to the Busch Gardens Williamsburg website and go vote for Geisterwolf. That's just my opinion. You shouldn't. You should totally not do this. Wink, wink. Please go do this. Please go vote for Geisterwolf, because that's like the actually only somewhat good one, because they're all kind of bad, the names. But what is it? Yeah, you can vote for the name. That's pretty much it. Vote for Geisterwolf. That's all I'm saying. What other news kind of dropped down nowhere? There's so context for this one. There was a roller coaster in Japan called Dododampa, where was it? So what's the word that I'm looking for? So Dododampa opened in 2001. It was built by SNS Worldwide, and SNS is famous for their compressed air launches, which are super powerful. They accelerate super quickly. So Dododampa opened initially with like 105 mile an hour launch, and I think it got to that in like 2.1 seconds, which at this point, because it opened in 2001, it took the record world's fastest roller coaster, world's fastest accelerating roller coaster. But in 2016, the park Fuji-Q Highland closed it, and they wanted to refurbish it for a new version, so they called it Dododampa. And so they took out what it had initially was a top hat. So a top hat is like a part where you go up straight, and then you kind of have a hill, and then you go back down. It's kind of like just straight up hill down. But they took that out and they replaced it with a vertical loop. Now the problem was with the loop, the trains could not get through that without them turning up the launch speed. So they turned up the launch speed from 105 miles an hour in like 2 seconds to 112 miles an hour in 1.56 seconds. And while this was crazy, it ended up breaking people's backs a few times, actually. So the ride had been closed since 2021, but they announced earlier this year that...
3.5 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes? Okay. They announced this year that the ride was done forever and they were going to remove it, which left Max Force at Six Flags Great America the new fastest accelerating roller coaster in the world, because 0 to 112 in 1.56 seconds is absolutely insane, and it was the world's fastest acceleration. And now that's gone, which was Dododampa. Now Max Force, which accelerates 0 to 78 in 1.78 seconds, I'm pretty sure, which is kind of a funny coincidence. was it? Now Max Force is the fastest accelerating in the world, but there's also a roller coaster in the UK named Stealth that the park is lying about how fast it launches. It actually launches 0 to 80 in 2.3, which is still like insanely good, pretty fast, super respectable for what it is. And then was it? They changed the sign, so everyone's now believing the sign that says 0 to 80 in like 1.8 seconds. Oh yes, this sign must be the truth when there's zero proof that they actually changed the speed. So yeah, Max Force is the fastest accelerating coaster in the world, not Stealth at Thorpe Park. So don't let anyone tell you that. But they started deconstructing Dodonpa's turnaround, so it kind of just launched to a big turn and then the loop and then went back. So they started deconstructing that this week, I'm pretty sure. That's kind of all I have to say for this episode. Again, I'm sorry if I kind of rambled this time. I just want to get used to actually doing this. So I promise next week it will be a more structured show, and from 7 to 8 p.m. next week, you can tune back into Thrills and Chills episode 2. I don't know what it's going to be about yet, but you should totally come back and listen then. For now, that's about it. Thank you for listening, if there was pretty much anyone listening, and have a great rest of the night.